Welcome everybody to our workshop, Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. Call to order. Item B, declaration of a quorum, 7 members present. Welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here. Item C, hearing of citizens. I don't believe we had any for the workshop. And item D, D1, 2024 STAR results.
Good evening, President Horak, Dr. Harkrider. I'm here this evening to present our preliminary 2024 STAR and state accountability rating results to you all. So just as a short recap, 2024 STAR assessment was our second year of what they're calling STAR 2.0 with the new question format. There were limited changes from 23 to 24 with that STAR format. Overall, the testing process went very well, all online, a few exceptions, but for 99%, we were all online. TEA continued to use the parent portal and their website to share results, and then paper copies are available as well if there's any families that need them on their campuses. So with the test design and passing standards, just before we walk into all the tables that we have prepared for you, I want to remind you the highest level of rigor that they can receive on this STAR assessment is what they call a master's level. That is what the agency says shows mastery of the course content and they're on track for college and career readiness. MEET's grade level is where they have a strong knowledge of the course content and will probably progress very well in the next grade level or subject. Approaches is where they know some of the knowledge, but they probably still have gaps and some critical elements, and so they're going to probably need some additional targeted support the next year. And they did not meet the standard, did not pass that STAR assessment. So we're going to walk through the state and district performance. Some of these are views you're used to seeing, some are new views. So we're going to start with reading. We'll go through each area by content. So for grades 3 through 8, this is our overall state to College Station ISD view. And we succeeded the state in every category, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now we're going to take it a little bit deeper and we're going to look at each grade by subject. So this is 3rd grade reading. Each of our campuses, you will see in blue the 2023 Spring STAR. So that was the very first year that we gave this STAR 2.0. In the green, you'll see Spring of 24, which is this past test, this most current year of data results. And then in the far right-hand column, in the yellow, you'll see the difference between 23 and 24. We broke that down by the number of students in that grade on that campus, the percentage at approaches, meets, and masters. So just a quick point out here, if they pass and reach approaches, that's one level. But when we take this and make the assessment and the accountability connection, when we can get a child into that meets level, we actually get double credit for them. And when we can move to that most rigorous level of masters, we actually get triple credit for them in the accountability STAR performance. So the green there is a gain, and the red there is a decline.
Quick questions as
Yes,
we're
sir.
reading this. So it's 3rd graders, so it's different groups in 2023-24.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is just grade to grade. It is not cohort.
So the
Great
next one, the
question.
4th graders, will be in 2024 from 2023.
Yes, sir. So then we're going to move to 4th grade. With the 10 campuses, we have to split them into slides. So this is 4th grade reading. So these were the 3rd graders. These were the 4th graders in 23 and the 4th graders in 24. So it's 2 different sets of students. This is not a cohort. So these students this year in 2025 will be 5th graders on their intermediate campus for the most part. Okay, then we go to intermediate, which is our 5th and 6th grade campuses. Fewer campuses, so we were able to fit 5th and 6th grade on the same slide. Yes, ma'am.
The other ones you'd said that, and I think I can do the numbers and confirm that here's approaches and like that yellow approaches column includes the master's meets and approaches.
Yes.
Got it. Even though
Great.
The other ones you'd written it on top.
Another great question. The approaches is actually approaches and above. Meets is actually meets and above. And masters is the masters. Okay, great question.
So that's everybody officially by the state passing, but as you said, the other two columns get more
Yes, ma'am.
points. Okay.
Okay, then for grades 3 through 8, we finish up with middle school reading, grades 7 and 8.
Are you going to tell us what we should be looking at, or do we get to figure that out? I mean, I have what I kind of feel like I
I'll
should be
have some
looking at,
bullet
but,
points when we get through all 4 core subjects.
okay.
Okay? And I'll make the accountability connection. And I'll gladly answer questions if I don't answer those. Okay?
Yeah, the biggest thing you're looking for is you're going to have a 1 to 3% movement year to year. It's not anything major. If you get above 5% or higher, especially any double-digit gains or double-digit losses are definitely problematic because those are big swings. 1 to 5%, not as much, but if you get 8 up to double digits, either way, it's really good. If it's in the green area and we have double-digit losses, it's obviously concerning.
Yeah. And I'll just say, I mean, there are a lot of ways to look at it. Obviously, there's a lot of information here, which is great. And I always want to look at data from year to year, and then also making a comparison like between us and who we want to compare to. And I think we said before, we always do really well against the state, but maybe that's not the only comparison. Maybe we can do and should do better than that. I would expect us to, want us to. But so when I've looked at this one, for instance, I look at CSISD, our 7th grade reading overall dropped 6%, right? Am I interpreting that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But Region 6 dropped even more, and the state also dropped about the same. They're all within a
ma'am.
point, like you said, Dr. Harkrader. And then look at 8th grade reading, on the other hand, we actually increased 3%. Right, and across all 3 campuses, and the state dropped 4, well, the Region 6 dropped 4, the state dropped 3. That was one thing that when I looked at,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, so I'm interpreting that right.
Yes, ma'am.
Best comparison data that we do not have yet because of the lawsuit involving STAR scores is we as a district and every single campus on every tested measure would get they call a comp group, meaning 40 schools that are very similar to us in enrollment and demographic data. And that's your truest form of comparison because it's someone that looks just like your campus.
Yeah. So I will move to mathematics 3 through 8. So again, our big umbrella view of how College Station ISD compares to the state for grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that's at who's passing, which we exceed the state except for 7th grade math, but we do have a very advanced math program in College Station ISD. So then we will dig deeper. Here is your 3rd grade math. And again, in that differences column, you will see the shifts, green positive, the red negatives from 23 to 24, the 2 years of STAR 2.0. Then we have 4th grade math. Okay. Now we switch to our intermediate schools with 5th and 6th grade math. And then our middle schools with 7th and 8th grade math. With your 7th grade math, only 52% of the 7th graders actually took the grade 7 math. The other 48% of our 7th graders took advanced math, whether that was their grade 8 math star or algebra 1 end of course. And you can see in the 8th grade math how it spreads out to include our intermediate schools, because those students also can participate in advanced math pass. But they do well.
Yeah, I was even looking, so at the 7th grader, though, it looks like we actually had a lot more students, quite a few more students take that test this year. Am I right? Yeah, the
Yes.
92, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It vary year to year of how many
Yeah.
kids are
Yeah.
on that pathway to go the advanced math track.
Or not.
It varies.
So that will also probably affect the scores
Yeah.
for that. Okay.
Absolutely. So then we move to science, which is only tested by STAR in grades 5 and 8. So again, our umbrella view of how we do compared to the state. Once again, we exceeded the state. And then we take a deeper dive, science grade 5 at our intermediate schools and science grade 8 at our middle schools. And we do have a few 8th graders, a handful, that take biology. A little bit of advanced science there. Okay, then last but not least at our 3 through 8 is social studies, which is 8th grade only. Once again, we're above the state. And then as we look at the 8th grade social studies from our 3 middle schools, their data. Okay, we're going to shift to end of course exams. So the end of course exams, just to remind you, you take at the end of whenever you're taking the course, regardless of what grade you are in. So for our end of course, the umbrella view as a district, we again have exceeded the state. And then I'm going to present it by subject. So here is your math, which is just the Algebra 1 EOC. Spring of 23 to spring of 24. So these were enrolled in that course during that school year. And you can see we can have students at the middle school to high school in those. Your biology. I do not have any middle school students reported here because they take the test and are associated with the high school for that. Plus the numbers are so small. I mean, there's less than 5 in the district, so I can't report them publicly. And then also you will see there that Accelerated Academy, which is our dropout recovery campus, it has asterisks because the numbers are so small. We don't need to put them publicly. Then I have English 1 and 2 on the same slide. Again, we have a few students taking English 1 in middle school, but numbers are too small to publicly post. Okay, then last but not least with our STAR data is U.S. history. So some highlights from this data that I want to point out is, once again, we're high, all subjects, every grade, all EOCs except for that grade 7. We're above this, we're good. This 2023 STAR data, I just want to touch base on that. This district does a very good job in the summer of STAR data digs, where our 2023 STAR data wasn't made available till well into the school year. So we did not have adequate time as a district, curriculum and instruction and other areas to do our usual College Station ISD data digs to really get a handle on that. And we had those new question item types. And those short constructed response and extended constructed responses and new rubrics are huge in all subjects. And we didn't get that opportunity. So I'm really excited to see what will happen in 2025 once we get to have those correct data digs. Okay. Any other questions about that STAR data before I move into accountability?
That was my question. What the impact? Because we've been talking about with this lawsuit and STAR being delayed every year.
I'm fixing to
And
help
we've,
you with that.
Oh, you got some? Okay. I'll wait.
Let me know if I don't cover it, okay? But I think I may be I'm going to
Probably will.
publicly answer what I can. So one thing we have had is we had an opportunity to bring in Lead Forward. And one of the things they've looked at when you look at this data is this is growth. This is an academic growth chart that's in accountability, which I'll cover here in a minute. But when you look at these, as a district, this is a general, anybody's data view. You have these students that were at masters and were droppers. They didn't perform the same from one year to the next. Almost 50% in this imaginary Learn a Lot ISD that he uses. These students were at meets and did not meet on 2024. They were another performance dropper, and that was almost 20% of this. So what we talked about when we brought in Lead Forward, and I've heard him many times present, and it's usually the same message. What happens if those students were at meets, stay at meets, and masters, stay at masters? They're not performance droppers. And for this imaginary Learn a Lot campus, it takes them from a C to a B. So what we did in this Lean Forward training is he looked at College Station ISD, and this is our data. And so when you look at us as College Station ISD, we have these students that were masters. And when you look at that from the 736, 45, 5, 6, and 1, those students, more than 1 out of 5 students who scored masters in 23 were droppers in 24. Then we look up above at meets. We had that line there of students that were meets in 23, but were droppers in 24. So once again, they were droppers, so we don't get any credit for them in our accountability. Plus, they were meets and masters higher students, and they went backwards. Now, it's a one day in the life test, but yeah, what happens if our masters stay masters and our meets stay meets and are not performance droppers?
So let me just clarify. You're saying we get no credit for their growth.
We get
I'm
no
assuming.
growth credit.
Right, but I mean, we still get credit for them being at obviously at the.
And the performance piece of
meets.
accountability, we do.
Right,
And the
but not-
growth, we
no
do
growth,
not.
right.
And as an educator, we're all about.
Right, obviously, we
growing
want every
students.
student to have growth. Yes, I got it. So.
Actually, you're only going to get credit in one category. So if a child is masters and reverts back to meets based on growth, you're only going to get 1 point
The
for
one.
approaches. You get no points for meets. And I think that's one of the biggest opportunities for us to improve is we have some of our top performing students at a higher percentage level digressing. They're not staying the same and they're not growing. And that was one of the reasons we brought Lead Forward in. He's one of the star gurus in the state of Texas. Our staff had not been trained on these metrics. And so we're preparing, teaching kids skills, taking an exam, and not understanding the dynamics because it's very It's difficult to understand. We actually have to buy programs to disaggregate our data to give us what-if scenarios on how we do. So we took a deep dive. It'd be once of another time to come in so John can work with our administrators and our campus coaches to understand what this, it is a game. It's an accountability game. How do we play this game? What are kids worth? How are we trying to move the metric with children? Because you can get into a situation, and I don't think we put it on here because I don't want to get into the weeds, of our kids who fail. So a student can fail, but if they went from failing at low, did not meet, up to high, we can get half-point credits for kids because they grew. And so it's not, if you take a child that had failed STAR for a couple years in a row, now it becomes a mental game. They're beat down, why do I try? And we're not asking teachers to create the impossible, we're asking them to grow kids. So if I grew a kid a certain metric each year, we're gonna get them to passing at some point in time. But they also are fighting a fair fight because we're not asking them to go from did not meet to masters. We're asking them to take steps to get them there.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing that we saw coming in. Our staff wasn't prepared, it wasn't their fault, for STAR 2.0. And so we're playing catch up as a school district. A lot of school districts are playing catch up. And so what we're doing moving forward is to better support our teachers who are working hard. It's not that they're not working hard, it's we've got to be working on the right things so they can see the growth of their kids. And that's something that we've taken a priority on this year. We'll be moving forward to make sure they're prepared in order to instruct kids at a level that our kids can achieve at. Because we are not, and that's why we're showing the state comparison, that's fine. Our demographics do not mirror the state. The state on average is 67% eco-dis. We're not, we're 42%. Whole different clientele. Our ratio of kids do not mirror the state. It's a whole different set of clientele of what we're doing. So when we say, hey, we're higher in the state, as we should be, we absolutely should be. We should start higher in that metric. So the needle is, what do we do as far as to provide the support that our staff needs in order to have our kids achieve at high levels? And it starts with, and we'll sort of slide in a little bit, a belief that all kids can learn at high levels. You have to truly believe that. And that's the culture we're trying to create, that we can grow all kids every day. And it starts when they walk into our doors and when they cross the stage.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and I agree, and I hope we have growth for every student. I mean, obviously, we want them all to learn. I will also, but my butt in there is a little bit, I will try not to get on, well, I may save my philosophy on too much test taking and basing so much of what our kids' success on just test taking. That is a whole nother discussion here, because well, maybe I won't save it, because I'm one of those people who I think there is a good, big place, an important place for our testing. It does help us see trends. It does help us figure out where we need to improve. It does help us compare to cohorts. So there are a lot of good reasons to look at meaningful data, but I also think you can go too far in how you potentially play the game, so to say, maybe, right? That I want it's not the only measure, as we've said many times. It's by far not the only measure of success for our school districts, so we got to just make sure we remember that. And then the other thing my thoughts on this is, like you said, if I have a kid at this master's level, and maybe they just made it, and I know this is how the state gives us our A through F, I understand that. But, maybe the next year they come back and they just didn't quite make masters. We still had that, so that's what happened with 20%, you're saying, maybe. We still had 80% that did again. So I don't know, how does that 20% compare to other school districts? I mean, there's always going to be a little up and down in the data, like we talked about. I mean, 80% are still there, or getting better if they're going from meets to masters. So.
And right now, at this point with litigation, we do not have comparison data.
That's part of what would be in the comparison.
We're also, what you're talking about there is, this is the state mandate. What we pushed at years ago was including the holistic student, which included fine arts, which included the other things of what kind of person are we making. So that was all pushed from this district and other districts up to the state. Our state legislator said we're not doing that. So that's why we're looking at the data based on testing. Because I agree with you, but that's why we're looking at this data that way.
And again, I want to look at it and I want to show success in the data and use the data to find out ways to make us better. I'm not saying that. I just want to make sure it's not and yes, that's what we're talking about today. But it's always a reminder when I, even for myself, when I get too focused in just some numbers, it's just a piece of what makes our school district successful.
Well, understand too, the only number that matters is growing kids. Every kid is growing. It's not passing, it's growing. That number does matter. That matter, all kids growing 100% matters. And that's the numbers we look at, because if we're growing all kids, those numbers up there take care of themselves. Kids grew, you get rewarded for that. Kids don't grow, you don't get rewarded for that.
Well, I do have one question about, because we're saying this is second year, STAR 2.0. I mean, when I look at some of these and I see that the state is dropping, at the same time that we've dropped a little bit too, and we're talking about 20% of kids dropping a level, things like that. Are we comparing apples to apples? Do we know that the standard for those lines was the same this year as it was last year? Does that make sense?
The performance levels are the same.
Okay.
Give me just a minute to get to a slide,
Okay. I'll let you.
and we'll see if this helps, okay? So we're going to move that and move to state accountability. That I think brings in some of y'all's questions. So we still do have the 3-domain system, domain 1 being student achievement, which is STAR performance, CCMR, and graduation. Then we move to domain 2, which is school progress, where your academic growth comes in, which was the tables we were just looking at, or relative performance, which goes back to STAR performance and CCMR. And then we have that final 30% domain 3, which is closing the gaps and all of the federal subgroups, which they have shifted some. But this accountability system is almost a 300-page document. We can really get into the weeds. We can talk about all the different pages, but we're not going to do that. So where are we at with accountability? We don't have an A, B, C, D, F for 2024 because, to your question, it is in litigation. They were supposed to have had a date yesterday, but I haven't heard any updates. But the thing that this litigation is questioning, the primary issue there is in red about the assessment instrument being based on empirical value and valid and reliable. Because STAR 2.0 included the new item types. And so there's a lot of questions about what you were asking about that performance levels. So that's where we are with 2024 in litigation. So then before that, 2023, it's still in litigation. The litigation for it is based on Education Code 39 there about any time during a school year. So you will see that this was 2023 accountability that was supposed to be for the 22-23 school year. But the date on the manual is November 14th, 2023, which is a part of the 23-24 school year. So that is where that litigation is being based on, and it's still in litigation. Okay. So the last ABC that we do have is our 2022 district rating, which was an 89, solid 89 for our district. And we had ABCs, we did great as College Station ISD. And those are the last ABC ratings that we have from the state, because 23 and 24 are still in litigation.
To follow up on Ms. E's question, kind of on the other, so you said everything else you think is pretty consistent from 23 to 24, like everybody was online at that point. Are the third and fourth graders having to write online?
So now there are, for all grade levels and all subjects, there can be short constructed answers, where they have to type in answers. There are drag and drop. There are questions with multiple answers. There are some drag and drop would be like fill in the blank. So very different question types. And we do have different places to practice, but it's different.
It's different. And there was been some talk too that some of the reading is graded by AI. Is that, what's the?
It's the
graded.
grading system.
The writing
That's what,
grading.
all the
It's the
writing,
writing.
the writing, yeah.
EA does not like you to use the word AI.
Oh, sorry.
But it is AI, absolutely. And if you look at the data across the state, in some districts that have performed well, including ours, there's a lot of zeros for kids wrote, not that they didn't write, but according to some research I've done, if you haven't addressed the prompt within the first sentence or so, it reverts to a zero. You and I both know third, fourth graders, kids are creative. They may get to a whole paragraph and then get back to it, but that software does not grade it that way. And so, correct, yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, based on what you said, that we're training our teachers better this coming year, we're really focusing, because there's a lot of red in here, which is concerning. Is our hope that maybe next year's data will really give us a better representation of how our children are doing?
Right.
So I think it's a process. We can't magically get everything flipped around in a year. I think it starts with building confidence and support with teachers to make sure these short constructive responses and some things that kids are exposed to, that we're doing that in our daily lessons, and it's not just worksheet driven, that kids are being able to express themselves in writing. If they can write, if you can write, I mean, anything in the world you can do. And so it starts there, and it starts with getting kids access and exposing them to it. Otherwise, we don't give them access and expose, and then when you take the STAR test, good luck. And we didn't set them up to be successful. And our teachers know that. I think it's part of knowing STAR and how it's structured. Then that gives our staff a chance to pivot and us to provide support of how do we take what we've been doing and with this lesson and how do we create activities that can challenge kids a little bit more. And so it's a process.
So my question was, and it's probably outside the STAR data, but I wonder, you mentioned the STAR test, how that kid performs on a random day of the week. First, we have the MAP test, which is better selection. I mean, it's data sampling 101. Do we see a divergence between our STAR performance and our MAP data, our local MAP data?
We can take your middle of the year MAP data. There's a metric with NWEA can do a projection based on their middle of the year MAP data on their success on STAR, and it's scarily correct. Like looking just at MAP data, we have an idea within a few percentage points of how our kids are going to perform on STAR. Now, some of them, and I think you saw with some of the data, we may have a child at middle of the year may be projected to be masters and was masters last year, and then that day just didn't have a great day and reverts back to meets. Doesn't mean our staff didn't do a good job with that child. Sometimes it's just a motivation piece, and that's kind of our frustration with the metrics. If you take a child that's masters, is it really that bad that they were meets? They still met everything the grade level was supposed to require. So there's some of the metrics we are not fans of. When I can go into detail forever about STAR, but it does give you that MAP data does make a projection that is very accurate.
Because I just feel like because we've been a high-performing district, it's hard to improve that much. Like you're saying, moving those up. So my question, kind of where Darren was going, is what's tied to this? Other than propaganda value, what's the matter of that B versus a B+?
Basically, it was, this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for the district, it's a way to give public ed black eyes. It was a lead in to when they went through A through F, that was when the push for the voucher system started. And so when the 23 data, the curveball districts threw was when they sued the state, and you could not release the A through F data when they were in session to try to get vouchers passed. They wanted to basically poo-poo what we're doing. Look at here, look at all these Fs. These districts don't know what they're doing. We've got to have vouchers. It's 100% politically driven. It's not driven about kids.
And I agreed, like, just to underline what everybody's saying, is may not be the best metric, but it's a metric to count improvement. But I think just so everybody understands, this isn't the only thing that we value our kids on. This doesn't capture, I mean, we spend, 20 minutes every meeting recognizing the excellence. Look at the Teachers of the Year awards, the recognition at the state and local level. So it's a blunt instrument, but obviously none of us, at least for me, I'm not looking at it as the end-all be-all of our district.
Correct.
If anybody's taking from this D1 workshop session, that this is what the district looks at only, then I don't know where y'all been, because this is just what we're talking about. This is the title of what we're dealing with. It's not a recoup of, or a revisit of map data and how we do all that. So I think it's glaring that those that are in charge of all this have probably never stepped foot in a classroom as a teacher. And that changes some things. And so I know Ms. McAdams has said it, Dr. Payne has said it. This is where we have to advocate for our kids. We have to talk to our representatives and do our part and hope for the best. And I hate to say hope for the best, because we hoped last year, and here's where we're at. But it's one of those mandated things that we have to abide by as a public educators. And so it's the data that we're given. Like you mentioned earlier, we got the data earlier this year than we did the year prior. It's a feather in our cap. Hopefully that'll be a plus, move forward and go from there. So, but yeah, I think we all can agree that this is not the only metric that is the determining end all be all of what College Station ISD is.
Maybe Ms. Hester will back me up here, but as a professor, if they got an 89, I'm going to round it up to an A. We good? Yeah.
So I know this is a lot of information to dig into, and it's something that y'all constantly look at throughout the year, but are there any patterns or anything that kind of have jumped out at you so far looking at this, as far as areas of particular concerns, or like, yeah, this sixth grade cohort over here, we're concerned because they moved up and their numbers stayed. I mean, is there any of that yet that y'all have gotten into, or will you?
Biggest concern we have is we had several grade levels with drops across the board, across every campus, which tells us we've got some systemic issues. So I think one of the things that we're going to dig into this year is our curriculum. Are there holes in our curriculum? If our teachers are teaching the curriculum that we've been writing and the metric isn't there, we may need to revisit the curriculum and make sure we're addressing the standards that are being tested. And so I think it's kind of a internal view of what we're doing. We're going to look potentially at TASA doing a curriculum audit to audit our curriculum to make sure we do not have holes in it. Because if we do, obviously we're asking teachers to fight an unfair fight. That you're following a curriculum that's not giving our kids what they need. And they can work as hard as they want to, but if it's not the right standards, that's on us. And so we'll take a deeper dive into that this year. We'll have teachers involved in that process as well. There's other curriculums out that you can purchase that provides teachers with more resources. And so there's just some things we need to visit about as a teaching and learning team to make sure we're providing all the resources that our staff needs to be successful.
And I'll just add, I really appreciate your comments about, how this is so much driven by to some degree, certain driven by the state and their efforts to try to undermine public education. So yeah, they are, even though I hate playing the game, they are forcing us to some degree to be in the game if we, if we want to be successful. So that's unfortunate. I'm going to ask one more question on this, because there's one piece that one way we didn't look at this data, and I don't know if we were going to do this later, because one of our, obviously one of our strategic goals is the performance of some of our underperforming student groups. And so we didn't have any of this separated out that way. When are we going to look at those?
We can run that for you. We have it. We just decided not to present that tonight, just giving you a broader picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else?
No, just thanks for all this data crunching. It's a lot, obviously. There's a lot in there, too.
That'll bring us to item D2, receive a report on professional learning and CSISD.
Mr. Denson, do we have all the presentation files? Okay. Oh, it's just in the same set of slides.
Yes,
Aha,
ma'am.
this is new. I apologize.
All right.
Okay. I should not have exited. All right, now I know for next time. So good evening, Mr. Horak, Dr. Harkrider, and members of the board. I am excited to be here tonight to talk about professional learning with my new compadre, Dr. Letty Roman, the elementary executive director. In the past, we've shared a lot about what we do to support teachers within our school district. But today we're taking a little bit of a different lens on that. And so when we're talking about professional learning, we're talking about the work we do with our educators so that they are able to advance outcomes for all of our students. You know, Mrs. McAdams, you alluded to goal 2, specifically of elevating outcomes of underperforming student groups. The work we do with professional learning is about that work, but also about making sure all students are growing, as y'all were just looking at, through the multiple means and multiple lenses like the STAR data, MAP data, and lots of different points of reference and views. So in general, when we talk about professional development, we're talking about more event-based learning experiences for teachers. That could be our required trainings, bloodborne pathogens, all of those different things that we have to do as required for this state. In October, for example, we'll have mental health first aid training. That really falls under that category of professional development. Our required GT hours, our launch for professional learning communities, for example, in August. All of those different types of experiences. And we're really shifting our lens more toward professional learning, looking at how we work together in collaborative teams to become a professional learning community, and then how we support that work through instructional coaching. And so we're really going to focus on those 2 areas tonight to share the work that we've done so far this year and what we have planned in the year to come to support our teachers.
Okay, so good evening. So as we get started, we're going to talk about what is the difference between a professional learning community and just the traditional professional development. If you think about a college class that you once have taken, you went to a professional development, you went and you learned, you sat and listened, and when you left, the learning stopped. And that's the difference, because in a professional learning community, it is ongoing, interactive, and customized to the teacher's needs, and it gives educators agency, which is treating them like a professional. Let them learn and grow in areas of need and support the learning and growing of their colleagues. A professional learning community also contributes to collective teacher efficacy. Collective teacher efficacy is the belief that a group of teachers can positively impact their students. It's a science-backed behavior that's considered one of the most important factors influencing student achievement, specifically greater than socioeconomic status, greater than their home environment and parental involvement, and greater than student motivation. And that's what leads, what professional learning communities leads to is increased collective teacher efficacy. So what is it? Never-ending process in which educators commit to working together to ensure higher levels of learning for every student. Dr. Harkrider already spoke of this exact quote, higher levels of learning. You might be thinking, well, some of our kids are going to schools that are performing very well. Well, until we have 100%, we still have students with needs. We have students that
there's some parent that has sent their child to school and is expecting them to be successful, and so we still have work to do. And every student is all means all. We even have shirts that say all means all, and we are dedicated to that. And how do we do that? We are looking at 4 critical questions. What do we want students to know and be able to do? Those are our standards given to us by the state. How will we know if they learn it? That is looking not just at a STAR test, but skill by skill throughout the school year. We are progress monitoring our students to see how they are doing through assessment. How will we respond when students do not learn? That, of course, is our intervention practices. And how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? And that is, of course, our extension activities. So professional learning communities is a cultural shift. In your packet, you have an expanded version of this sheet right here. It is not something that we can just change practices through an email or even a one-day conference. Cultural shift takes time in building trust because it's a shift from teachers working in isolation to teachers working in collaborative groups. The focus is now shifted from really looking at a student's background to now really focusing on their future. And again, the professional development shift, as I've already described, from learning by listening to learning by doing. So I just want to wrap up also for professional learning communities. There's also a sheet in your packet pointing to pages and pages of research that backs the work of professional learning communities. It's just an opportunity for educators to share resources, expertise, and best practices to improve teaching and learning.
So this year in our district, we have launched a professional learning communities district-wide. We have some early adopter campuses. There are 7 who have been doing this work a little bit longer than all of the others. But working toward becoming a true professional learning community has actually been part of our district improvement plan for the last 3 years. And we're really excited to see the work that we are coming to fruition, if you will, in those collaborative team meetings as they are really leaning into those 4 critical questions, making sure that all members of the team have the depth of understanding to be able to ensure all students are achieving the high levels of learning that we'd like with those essential skills. Kid by kid, skill by skill, I think if that's one idea you take away about what a professional learning community is, that's what we're really looking at, is working collaboratively to ensure that all kids get what they need from our teams of teachers. And so to support that, we've shifted our structures around instructional coaching in the district. So we have at all 10 elementaries and our 3 intermediate and 3 middle schools, 2 full-time coaches. There's an ELA social studies coach and a math science coach at each of those campuses. At the high schools, we do not have full-time coaches, but we are supporting our department chairs in working toward a hybrid model. And I want to emphasize we're working toward it. Right now, during this first 6 weeks, they have been supporting their departments in launching professional learning communities, developing depth of understanding and expertise, and we're bringing on the individual coaching of teachers throughout the rest of the school year with that group of folks. With our other instructional coaches who are full-time, Dr. Roman and I have what I would call the great privilege of getting to work with them every Friday to collaborate and learn together and to plan their next moves as they strive to make an impact on their campus. And so through instructional coaching, they are partnering with their teachers, with their campus principals to utilize research-based best practices, to continue to grow teachers, because when our teachers are growing, we know that our students will grow as well. We will see that in our academic outcomes. They are modeling strategies, reflecting with teachers, really digging in to multiple pieces of data, from common formative assessments, which might be as simple as an exit ticket that's one question, but you can get a lot of information about a student's learning from quick checks like that, all the way up to our more summative formalized district created and campus-based assessments, to disaggregating math data, or MAP, not math. MAP is math as well, but anyway. And then giving that high quality professional learning that is just in time, in the moment when they're with those teacher teams. For example, if someone is struggling with small group instruction and how to pull different groups in the class setting, then right in that moment, rather than waiting for our next professional development designated day, instructional coaches are able to give them what they need and coach them in that next instructional move just in time. So some of the additional benefits of having coaches is that we are able to give personalized, confidential support to teachers. They have that ongoing, just-in-time, job-embedded professional learning. And teachers are able to refine their craft, whether they're being coached in their collaborative team setting, in a small group of teachers based on a specific need or skill that they're wanting to work on, or as individuals. They get that structured support, and we're excited to see the results as that will lead to the improved learning of our kids through those systems. We also have increased some levels of support from our curriculum and instruction department that we get to work with. Our content coordinators, as y'all know, we have 4 core content coordinators. Say that very quickly. And they are K-12. And so they have been working and supporting with our instructional coaches to be able to maximize their impact. And also have been able to spend time firsthand in collaborative teams, providing training. You know, we just finished beginning of the year MAP, and so they're helping our teachers make sure they're leveraging that data to the best of our abilities to plan our next instructional moves. They're providing a lot of support related to data literacy, how to use our instructional resources, such as the new science materials that we have. And so forth. And we've put some systems in place that we are better monitoring the time that we're spending on our campuses. And so I just glanced, and we're at like over 280 campus visits, and like those are multiple hours. You just think about the amount of time and support that we've been able to give as a CNI staff to this work. We're very proud of that impact and what we're seeing in looking at supporting teachers in a different way, building on the foundation that we have set with the background knowledge with professional learning communities that has been built in past years. So, you know, we have, I'll just speak on behalf of myself, as Dr. Harkrider did earlier. You know, I've been in College Station ISD for 23 years. Our mission statement has been success each life, each day, each hour. I'm excited that when we're talking about what that success is, it absolutely encompasses that unique success that our vision statement shares as well. But ultimately, when we talk about success, we've redefined that and calibrated around this idea that when we're talking about success, it is about all kids achieving and growing at high levels. And we know we have to make some changes into how our systems are structured so that we can guarantee that. And that's what we're doing with our coaches and with professional learning communities. We'd love to take your questions as well.
Could you give an example of, let's say, I don't know, an elementary school teacher, the difference in their day or their training or their development with a PLC versus how it was done in the past at most of our campuses?
Absolutely. Sure. Take it.
I'd be happy to answer that question. So in the past, you would probably see teachers just coming together to plan, basically saying, what are we going to do Monday? What are we teaching first, second, et cetera, and go through the week. What professional learning communities does is they come together and they are really looking at the state standards that we've been given, taking a lot of time to unpack the standards and see what are the prerequisite skills, what do they need to know here, what will they need to know going forward. So unpacking the standards and having a common understanding of that standard, which is a huge, huge part of the work, is just understanding the standards. You would be surprised at the different ways they can be interpreted. It's kind of like code. You have to figure it out. So they unpack the standards, get a common understanding. They can share instructional practices. They can share materials and talk about what is the best way to teach this standard. They might even model those instructional strategies and practices, share materials so that when they go into their planning, they're all ready for high levels of success, which is what our goal is. That is the difference. And so you would have an additional time that you spend unpacking the standards, learning about the standards, deciding as a team, what do we deem as proficient? What do we think is, some below or exceed, sort of like putting a rubric together of success so that, again, we've got this common understanding of what success will look like at each standard.
I love to see y'all's enthusiasm when y'all are talking about this because I think that will filter down have y'all received feedback from some of the campuses, especially the early onboarders? Like, I know change is hard, and how are the teachers feeling about this, the staff?
A couple of comments. So change takes time. Cultural change takes time. So on one hand, I think that every training that we've had, including today, you have people walking out of the training just bursting, so excited, they're thrilled. I know exactly what I want to do. I know my next steps, so happy. But I would just be honest with you that some people are stressed because it's new and everybody handles change a little differently. I'm one of those odd people that I love and I embrace change. I think it's amazing. Not everybody is that way. So we as a district have been super patient and understanding with everyone as they move through the change, knowing it is a cultural shift in what they do. But at every moment, we believe it is the right move for all students to learn.
Yeah, and Letty touched on this earlier. It's one of the few times that this is an initiative that teachers right now are stressed about. They don't want to do something wrong. Like, I don't want to do it wrong because their teachers are pleasers. And so it's the first time most staff development in my 24 years have been, this is what we're doing, this is what it looks like, go make it happen. Do it A, B, C. So this is the first time the teachers are getting the keys to the car. This is your PLC. You're going to run it. You tell us what you need to be successful. So there's that angst with teachers that don't want to do something wrong, and really an angst with principals. We want to do this right, which is it's great. You can't do it wrong. If you're taking steps to grow kids and to move your PLC forward, there's no wrong way to do it. The only wrong way to do it is to not do it, and to continue to do and work in isolation. So that's really something that we've reiterated with our instructional coaches. I've talked to them last week, our campus principals, and we will get out on campuses and watch the PLCs work and really encourage our staff that there's no way to do this wrong. We're taking steps to get there. And my biggest focus is to create change, true change, you've got to create momentum. You've got to get the ball rolling. That's the hardest part. That's why true systemic change very rarely happens in any organization, because you get resistance and you stop, or you start compromising what we're doing. We are not going to compromise our belief that all kids can learn and grow at high levels. Never. Patience is part of it. And my goal is with our campus principals as we create momentum with this process by the time we hit Thanksgiving. Because at that time, if we stick with it, teachers are going to start to see kids learning at higher levels. They're going to see the light bulb going off. They're going to realize we're dividing and conquering the work. It's not all on me in isolation on a Sunday trying to plan my entire week's lessons. And once they start seeing that momentum and kids being more successful, their frustration lowers, and then we create an excitement of we're not doing something to you, we're doing something for you and supporting you in that work.
I'm glad we're sharing more information about the PLCs and what they look like. I mean, that's something I've asked for as somebody who, really early on didn't know a whole lot about them. And like your question of what does this look like for our teachers? What is it looking like for our students? To me, this is a piece of it, right? You're talking about how this is kind of the learning piece and the professional development piece of it. So on that piece, I guess where are we fitting this time in, and are the coaches in a classroom setting, or is it when the teachers are meeting together? I mean, how are they getting enough time to get coached, I guess, in that? And I guess the other piece, because I think I like Heather's question too about, obviously how are the teachers reacting? You said you got excitement on training today. What percentage of teachers have really, you felt like kind of got the training? Are we getting past some of that momentum hump, right, to get enough folks knowledgeable about where we are? So hopefully they can see the why and get excited about it, right?
So every campus has a guiding coalition, which is led by their principal, but it has representation from all facets of their campus. And so really the work on each campus is crafted by that leadership team at the campus level, which has strong teacher representation on it. Most of those folks were able to attend the Summer Institute last summer, whether it was high impact teams or the PLC at work. And then whether they were in the first cohort last year or this year, we have 6 days of coaching academy training for members of the Guiding Coalition, which really is designed to continue to deepen understanding of all of these different concepts. This is an iterative process. I'm going to go back to that phrase, learning by doing. As they work their way forward, there's a natural progression of coming up against an obstacle or a stumbling block and needing to try something different. But the exciting piece of it is that they're crystal clear on the expectations around what we want our students to be doing. And have common measures and common understandings of whether we have gotten there or not, and then work collaboratively with their team to figure out what the just right next move is. And so there are multiple layers of folks on every campus who have been trained. We will continue to bring that on. But all campuses were supported by the district in having a set of learning outcomes, learning targets for us as educators, and a slide deck to customize, if you will, for your campus to make sure that we are coming back to those key ideas, the 3 big ideas, the 4 questions. How are we going to do this work? Are we setting up our team structures? Have we created the time within the day for teachers to be able to work as collaborative teams? What does that look like? If I had gone to, I'll give the examples of the 2 high schools and said, this is exactly how we're going to embed this in your day, you can imagine what the reaction to that would be. So principals with their guiding coalitions have made choices about how this is structured on their individual campuses and when they have that time and how often they are meeting and all of those different things. And so I would say big picture, we have some systems in place to make sure that we have lots of layers of learning for teachers. But really, it's about the daily practice of doing the work together and figuring it out where we really will get that ownership of the work and the understanding as well.
And to
Go ahead.
To comment a little bit about the student experience, I think one of you asked that question. So let's think back traditional school. Again, as I described in the beginning, so everybody might decide we're going to teach this standard on Monday, then this one Tuesday, and then everybody leaves and goes and does their own thing. What a professional learning community does, like I described, is they're sitting around talking about what are the best practices, what strategy will get all students to learn at high levels. So now when they go back to their individual classrooms, we've got a first-year teacher, we've got a veteran teacher, and we've got somewhere in between who are all doing some beautiful practices where the school principals now can say to every single parent, you can go into any single classroom and they're all going to be amazing. Whereas any educator in this room, you could probably ask them what was their first year of teaching like. And I know I personally should write an apology letter to a lot of people from my first year of teaching. We all make tons of mistakes. This helps all the teachers ensure high quality education in every single classroom. And so the student experience changes because of the professional learning community.
Thank you both for getting, I know it's new for a lot of people, and I've said this many times. So that alone is hard, but we know we need to make some changes. And I think at least I view our viewpoint here is, we're not going to tell the campus how to do it and how to set their schedule. They can do that, and they need to communicate and get this training out to their teachers and let their community know what's going on. But I do feel like we need to make sure, and ask you, do the CNI folks, do the teachers, do they have the resources they need for this to be successful? So I don't know if we know if there's gaps in that yet, or if there's, do you have what you need for this to be successful? I'm assuming you'd come to us if you.
I would love to comment on that. Sorry.
Well, and let me
Go ahead.
Let me say one thing, and then I'll let you comment.
Okay.
We're 5 weeks into school. So I think we need to really temper the expectations of where we are versus where we're going to be. The conversation we're having right now, 5 weeks in school, is going to be a lot different than a conversation we're going to have the week after spring break. And then our next topic on the workshop sessions, I will give you.
So I've done professional learning communities in 3 districts. This makes number 3. And I've said it to anybody who'll listen, I have never seen this level of support in any of the districts yet. The district-wide training, the campus level support, the summer training, all of it is so comprehensive. I am completely blown away at the dedication the district has made to supporting all campuses and the learning of the systems to increase student learning. So my perspective, for whatever it counts, it's unbelievable the level of support this district has provided the campuses.
Your perspective counts a lot, so
Well,
thank you.
I'll just piggyback on that with, the time we have every Friday with the instructional coaches is really allowing us to know what they need in that moment and help provide those support. So whether it's coming from a content coordinator, one of us, or really, most importantly, from one another, they're sharing resources and ideas and examples of what is working on their campuses and what they have tried. And so I think that is another key. I know like Dr. Harkrider said, we're only 5 weeks in, but the collaboration across campuses that we're seeing through the coaches is another layer of support that is really working well.
Thank you, that's all fantastic. I will say maybe the hardest thing that is right now hard for us to provide is more time to do a lot of this. It's a lot of new stuff for them to work on.
Anything else? Thank y'all very much. We appreciate it. D3, trustee tours. Dr. Harkrider.
Yes, sir. We've got 2 more items, and we'll get through these pretty quickly. Trustee tours, I just wanted to get you your opinion. Had an idea. It's not something new. Other districts have done it, but after being here a year and visiting with you guys, I would like to get you more exposure to what we're doing at the campus levels and to be around our teachers and students versus we bring them here, which is great. So my kind of proposal would be we'd start in October. So the 3rd Friday of every month, which would be the same Friday of our board meeting, we'd visit a campus. So we'd visit 8 campuses in 24-25. Campus principals would design what that would look like, and I'm not talking about an all-day experience. I will let you substitute teach if you'd like to. Be more than happy to drop you off there. But we would meet probably 1.5 hours max, and our campus principals would be able to expose you to what they would like to showcase you with, whether that's walking into some classrooms. I'm not for sure on our PLC schedules, but maybe even put together a mock PLC for a grade level that you see how they interact and work together, possibly presentations by students, student tour, just an opportunity to get you on a campus around our kids and our staff members, and they get to see you versus just they show up at a meeting or watch you online or see your picture, and they all know you make the big bucks. But anyway, I just wanted to get your opinion if this is something y'all would be open to. If it would, we would start in October.
I think it's awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah, great idea. Especially from the one school board member who now no longer has kids in the districts.
We'll get your kid fixed then. Okay, perfect. I'll get to work with some of our campuses. We'll get a schedule together, let you know. That way it's a set date. It's why I picked that 3rd Friday. We're not out of school on any of those, I don't believe. It'll be a consistent schedule so you could plan around it. Okay?
Sounds good.
Ms. Wilson.
23-24 budget closeout. That's fun to talk about.
Mr. Hurt, Dr. Harkrider, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to talk really quickly about our budget. I know that you were probably expecting a little bit of a deficit, and that's not how we're going to end this fiscal year. Feel very blessed that we're going to end it in the positive. We still have a lot of things that we're dealing with right now and closing out. We have to accrue salaries and do some other fun accounting stuff, but we're getting pretty close to those numbers. Why you saw such a difference in the revenue, if you can think back to the beginning of the school year, and then what happened in November, we had an election and they changed our homestead exemption from 40,000 to 100,000. And so that happened after we began our school year, after the budgets were adopted. So schools had to really work and switch that state revenue and local revenue around, where the state was going to pick up additional revenue and then the local taxes were going to have less coming in. So there were some different, thank you. Yeah. There were some different things that were going on at that time. And at that time, TEA in the Summary of Finance did not have something called hold harmless, where we were taking less freeze adjustment calculations. And so what happened with that huge freeze adjustment, school districts' revenue decreased considerably, as you all know. So TEA came back and did something called an imputed interest on the freeze adjustment. So they just said, they kind of looked at our historical tax revenue and tried to back into the number that away. Moat Casey got them really involved in May when the numbers came out from TEA and said, hey, this is not something that we should be doing. We really should look at freeze adjustments because the freeze adjustment is coming to the state through our property values from the comptroller's office. So they adjusted that number then in May and gave the new numbers to the school districts. What was a little catchy for our school district is because if you remember back, our numbers that were submitted to the from the CAD to the property the comptroller's office were off, and the freeze adjustment wasn't accounted for appropriately. So when they applied those numbers to the summary of finance, it was bigger than just applying our T1 values and things like that, because we had to look at that freeze adjustment number. So that freeze adjustment number meant the district got $2 million more than what we were anticipating. And so that's what you're really kind of looking at the revenue there. And then I do want to make you aware that we did budget that in the 24-25 school year as well. So you'll expect that in our numbers going forward. And so just wanted to kind of give you a heads up in case you had questions about where the revenue is coming from. Does anybody have any questions?
No, just it is good news. So it's good news for our savings account, but you said you already had calculated it in the numbers when we looked at this, but this year's budget, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
We were just trying to get that verification from TEA that we calculated everything correctly on the summary of finance. So yes, but we did.
Maybe I'll say it. I don't say it very often. Thank you, TEA. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, Moat Casey, for fighting for us. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, that'll adjourn us. We'll be back for a board meeting.